The silence of the desert was a lie. It wasn't empty. It was full of a language older than words, a language spoken in the abrasive kiss of the wind and the relentless glare of the sun. Elias understood this language. He had to. It was the only thing that hadn't been stripped from him, or perhaps it was the one thing he had chosen to keep. He pressed his hand against the rough bark of a skeletal Joshua tree, its twisted arms reaching for a sky that offered no mercy. He had been walking for 3 days since he'd left the last town, a place that had already faded into a smear of dust and regret in his memory. His water was low, his food a memory, but his will was a fortress. He closed his eyes, not against the sun, but to see more clearly, to see the man he had been. The man with the corner office that overlooked the sprawling city, a glass cage where he had been both king and prisoner. He saw the tailored suits that felt more like a uniform, the expensive watch that mocked him with every tick, counting down the seconds of a life that wasn't his. He saw the faces, the smiling, hollow faces of people who called him a success, people who had no idea of the rot that was eating away at his soul. They saw the empire he had built, but they didn't see the price. They didn't see the sleepless nights, the gnawing anxiety, the constant, low-grade hum of dissatisfaction that had become the soundtrack to his existence. He had walked away from it all, not in a blaze of glory, not with a dramatic farewell. He had simply disappeared. One day the corner office was empty. The suits hung in the closet, silent and still. The phone rang and rang until it finally gave up. He had taken only what he could carry on his back and he had started walking. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew what he was walking away from. And in that act of walking away, he was discovering a power he never knew he possessed. A power that wasn't measured in stock portfolios or social status. It was a power that came from the stripping away of everything that was not essential. It was the power of the nomad, the power of an iron will. What is it that you are clinging to? What are the chains, gilded though they may be, that are holding you in place? You think they are your strength, your security, but what if they are your cage? What if the only way to find your true dominion is to do the unthinkable, to walk away? Not from responsibility, but from the illusion of control. Not from love, but from the attachments that suffocate it. Not from life, but from the version of life you've been told you should want. The journey of Elias is not just a story. It is a mirror, and if you are brave enough to look into it, you might just see the reflection of the person you were always meant to be. The person who has the courage to let go of everything to gain everything. The first night in the desert, Elias had been terrified. The darkness was absolute, a suffocating blanket that swallowed the world. Every sound was magnified, every rustle of an unseen creature, every sigh of the wind. He had built a small fire, its flickering light a pathetic defiance against the overwhelming blackness. He had been a man who controlled boardrooms, who could command the attention of 100 people with a single word. But out here he was nothing. He was small. He was vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, he found a strange kind of freedom. In the city, his life had been a constant performance. He was always on stage, playing the part of the successful entrepreneur, the confident leader, the man who had all the answers. But out here, with no one to impress, no one to deceive, the mask began to crack. And underneath, he found a man he barely recognized. A man who was afraid, yes, but also a man who was resilient. A man who could endure. He remembered a conversation he'd had with his mentor, an old man named Julian who had built his own empire, and then, in a move that had shocked the business world, had given it all away to live in a small, secluded cabin in the mountains. Elias had visited him once, seeking his advice on a particularly ruthless corporate takeover. Julian had listened patiently, his eyes as clear and deep as a mountain lake. When Elias had finished, Julian had simply said, "You are fighting the wrong war, my boy. You are so busy conquering the world that you have forgotten to conquer yourself." At the time, Elias had dismissed it as the ramblings of an old man who had lost his edge. But now, alone in the desert, Julian's words echoed in his mind with a chilling clarity. He had been fighting the wrong war. He had been so focused on external validation, on the accumulation of wealth and power, that he had neglected the one thing that truly mattered: his own inner world. He had believed that his possessions defined him: his car, his house, his company. They were the trophies of his success, the proof of his worth. But as he walked further and further into the desert, leaving the world of things behind, he began to realize that they were not trophies. They were anchors. They were weighing him down, keeping him tethered to a life that was slowly killing him. To walk away from everything. It sounds like a surrender, doesn't it? A defeat. But what if it is the ultimate act of victory? What if it is the only way to reclaim your sovereignty? The world tells you to accumulate, to gather, to build. More money, more status, more followers. But the ancient Stoics knew a different truth. They knew that true wealth is not in having many things, but in wanting few. They understood that the more you attach yourself to external things, the more you become a slave to them. Your peace of mind becomes dependent on the whims of fortune, on the approval of others. You are a puppet, and your strings are being pulled by 1,000 different hands. To walk away is to cut the strings. It is to declare your independence. It is to say, I am enough. I do not need your applause. I do not need your validation. I do not need your things to feel whole. Elias had thought he was a lion in the boardroom. He had roared and the world had trembled. But out here in the silence of the desert, he realized he had been a caged lion, pacing back and forth in a gilded cage, fed on a diet of synthetic success and empty praise. The real lions were the ones who roamed free, the ones who were not afraid to be alone, the ones who found their strength not in the pack, but in their own untamed spirit. The second day was harder than the first. The sun was a relentless hammer beating down on him with a merciless intensity. His skin, once pampered with expensive lotions and shielded from the elements, was now raw and blistered. His throat was a desert in itself, a landscape of cracked earth and desperate thirst. He stumbled, his body screaming in protest. Every muscle ached, every joint was a point of fire. He fell to his knees, the hot sand searing his skin. He was tempted to give up. To lie down and let the desert claim him. It would be so easy, so peaceful. But then he remembered Julian's words, conquer yourself. He had been conquering the world, but he had never learned to conquer his own weakness, his own desire for comfort, his own fear of pain. He had always surrounded himself with a buffer of luxury, a shield against the harsh realities of life. But out here there was no buffer. There was only him and the desert was a brutal teacher. He forced himself to his feet. He took a single, agonizing step, and then another, and another. He focused on his breath, on the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest. He thought of the Stoic philosopher Seneca, who had written, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Elias had been the poorest man in the world, surrounded by a mountain of wealth. He had craved more, always more. A bigger deal, a bigger house, a bigger reputation. He had been a bottomless pit of desire. But now all he craved was a single drop of water, a moment of shade, a breath of cool air. And in that simplicity he found a richness he had never known. What are you craving? What is the more that is driving you, that is keeping you on the treadmill of a life you don't even want? Is it more money, more fame, more love? And what if you were to stop craving? What if you were to simply be present with what you have, right here, right now? The modern world is a machine designed to create cravings. It bombards you with images of a life you are supposed to want, a life of endless consumption and fleeting pleasures. It tells you that you are not enough as you are, that you need this car, this watch, this relationship to be happy. But it is a lie, a beautiful, seductive lie. The nomad knows the truth. The nomad knows that happiness is not found in accumulation, but in liberation. Liberation from the need for more. Liberation from the fear of loss. Liberation from the opinions of others. Elias walked on, his body a symphony of pain, but his mind was becoming quiet. The constant chatter of anxiety and ambition was fading, replaced by a deep, resonant silence. He was no longer thinking about the next deal, the next conquest. He was simply walking. He was observing the world around him with a clarity he had never experienced before. The subtle shift of colors in the desert landscape, the intricate dance of a beetle on the sand, the majestic soar of a hawk in the endless sky. He was seeing the world for the first time, not as a resource to be exploited, but as a living, breathing entity of which he was a part. He had been a man of action, a man of results. He had measured his days in spreadsheets and profit margins. But out here, the only measure of success was survival. And in that raw, primal struggle, he was discovering a new kind of purpose. A purpose that was not about achieving, but about becoming. He was becoming a man who could endure hardship without complaint, a man who could find beauty in the harshest of environments, a man who was not afraid to be alone with his own thoughts. He was becoming a man of iron will. On the third day he saw it, a dark shape on the horizon shimmering in the heat haze. At first he thought it was a mirage, a cruel trick of his dehydrated mind. But as he walked closer, the shape resolved itself into a lone, gnarled tree, a testament to the tenacity of life in this unforgiving landscape. And at the base of the tree, there was a small, almost imperceptible trickle of water, seeping from a crack in the rock. He fell to his knees and drank, the cool water a benediction on his parched lips. It was the sweetest thing he had ever tasted, more satisfying than any vintage wine, more exhilarating than any multi-million-dollar deal. It was the taste of life itself. As he drank, he looked at his reflection in the small pool of water. The man who stared back at him was not the same man who had walked out of the corner office. The face was gaunt, the skin burned and peeling. The eyes were sunken, but they held a new light, a light of understanding, a light of peace. He had walked away from everything he thought he was, and in doing so he had found who he truly was. He was not his job. He was not his money. He was not his reputation. He was something more, something deeper, something that could not be bought or sold, something that could not be taken away from him. He was the master of his own inner world. He had true dominion. The journey back to civilization was different. He did not walk with the same desperate urgency. He walked with a new sense of purpose, a new sense of self. He was no longer running away from something. He was walking towards something. He was walking towards a life of his own choosing. He did not go back to the corner office. He did not go back to the tailored suits and the empty applause. He sold his company, giving most of the money away to those who had helped him build it. He kept only enough to live a simple, uncluttered life. He bought a small piece of land in the mountains, not far from where his mentor, Julian, had lived. He built a cabin with his own hands, the rough-hewn logs a testament to his own strength and resilience. He spent his days in the quiet company of the mountains, reading the books he had never had time to read, thinking the thoughts he had never had time to think. He was not a hermit. He did not cut himself off from the world. He simply chose to engage with it on his own terms. He mentored young entrepreneurs, not by teaching them how to be ruthless, but by teaching them how to be wise. He taught them that true success is not measured in dollars, but in a life well lived. A life of purpose, of integrity, of inner peace. He had walked away from the world's definition of success, and in doing so he had created his own. He had walked away from a life of noisy desperation, and in doing so, he had found a life of quiet strength. He had walked away from everything, and in doing so, he had gained the one thing that truly mattered. He had gained himself. What about you? What are you walking towards? Are you on a path of your own choosing, or are you following a map that someone else has drawn for you? Are you building a life of quiet strength, or are you chasing the noisy phantoms of a success that will never satisfy you? These are not easy questions, but they are the most important questions you will ever ask yourself, and the answers will not be found in the noise of the world. They will be found in the silence of your own heart. They will be found when you have the courage to walk away from everything that is not you. The path of the nomad is not a path for everyone. It is a path for those who are brave enough to question the assumptions of the world. It is a path for those who are hungry for something more than the bland diet of conventional success. It is a path for those who are willing to endure the hardships of the journey in order to taste the sweet water of true freedom. It is the path of the iron will, and it is a path that is open to you right now in this very moment. You don't have to walk into the desert. You don't have to build a cabin in the mountains. You simply have to be willing to let go of the need for approval, to let go of the fear of failure, to let go of the belief that you are not enough. And when you do, you will discover a power within you that you never knew you possessed. A power that is not dependent on external circumstances. A power that is yours and yours alone. The power of a will that has been forged in the fires of self-discipline and self-discovery. The power of a soul that is finally and completely free. This is not just a motivational speech. This is a call to action, a call to a revolution of the self, a revolution that begins with a single step, the step of walking away. The world will tell you that you are crazy. It will tell you that you are throwing your life away. It will try to lure you back with the promise of comfort and security. But you must not listen. You must listen to the voice within you, the voice that is whispering of a different kind of life, a different kind of success. The voice of your own untamed spirit. Embrace the solitude, embrace the struggle, embrace the uncertainty, for it is in these things that you will find your greatest strength. It is in these things that you will forge your iron will. You are the master of your fate. You are the captain of your soul, but you can only be so if you are willing to take the helm, to steer your own ship, to chart your own course, even if it means sailing into uncharted waters, even if it means leaving the safe harbor behind. The nomad's journey is a solitary one, but it is not a lonely one, for you will be in the company of the greatest minds in history, the Stoics, the ascetics, the rebels, the visionaries, all those who dared to walk away from the well-trodden path and forge their own. You will be in the company of yourself, your true self, the self that has been waiting for you to come home. So I ask you again, what are you waiting for? The world will not give you permission to be free. You must take it. You must claim your dominion. You must walk away from the cage, no matter how gilded it may be, and step into the vast, open expanse of your own potential. The desert is waiting. The mountains are calling. Your true life is on the other side of your fear. Walk on and do not look back. Let this story of Elias be more than just a fleeting moment of inspiration. Let it be a seed planted in the fertile ground of your mind. A seed that, with the water of your intention and the sunlight of your will, can grow into a mighty tree of self-mastery. Join us on this journey. Subscribe to this channel, not just to watch videos, but to become part of a community of modern-day nomads, a community of individuals who are choosing to live life on their own terms, a community of iron wills. In the comments below, share one thing that you are willing to walk away from in order to gain a greater sense of dominion in your life. It could be a limiting belief, a toxic relationship, a soul-crushing job. By sharing your intention, you are not only holding yourself accountable, but you are also inspiring others to take their own first step. The path is not easy, but you do not have to walk it alone. We are here with you every step of the way. And in our next video, we will explore the practical steps you can take to cultivate an unbreakable inner fortress, a mind so disciplined that no external circumstance can ever shake it. Until then, remember the words of the great Stoic emperor, Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The strength is within you. It has been there all along. You just have to be willing to walk away from everything that is hiding it. The dominion you seek is not in the world. It is in you. Claim it.